Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Quantum Listener. I'm David Ellis. Today, in recognition of Groundhog Day, I thought we would take the time to explore the idea of repeats. Why we do them, is there too much of them, and other things about this very interesting musical tool. If one were to talk about repeats, the first thing they would have to mention, of course, is early music, particularly Baroque music. In most Baroque repertoire, repeats are used for a variety of reasons. One of them is structural, the other one is for improvisation, for instance, ornamentation. But there are certain cases where the repeats are sometimes unnecessary. Say a section is too long, or a concert is too long. The performer will oftentimes decide to cut, especially songs with verses. But Bach is the one composer that people get very worked up about, for a very good reason. He's very specific with how he writes his pieces. This is why oftentimes you'll have a lot of differing opinions about how much to ornament, if to ornament. And therefore, it's a bit of a hot-button topic. Today, I thought we would look at a specific case of when repeats might be a little problematic. This is in one of the Bach Cello Suites, specifically number 4. Looking at the two bourrées. In each of the suites, Bach will have two different dance movements that often are paired together. In suites 1 and 2, it's minuets. 3 and 4, it's bourrées. 5 and 6, it's gavottes. Oftentimes, the dance movements in Bach are already structured very uniformly. But the bourrées from number 4 are very interesting. You have an extremely asymmetrical orientation. We'll start from the outsides. In the A section of the first bourrée, as you see, we have 12 bars. And in the much shorter bourrée number 2, we have a minuscule 4-bar A section, followed by an 8-bar B section. This leaves in the middle a monstrous 36-bar B section for the first bourrée. So what does one do? At this point, I should say, I do not know a single recording or performance of the bourrées, the minuets, any of these pieces that is not done in a very specific way. For instance, one would usually take the first bourrée with repeats, follow that up with the second bourrée with repeats, follow that all up with the first bourrée again, but without repeats. But in this particular movement, it is problematic because of how uneven it is. Specifically, does one repeat the second section? Let's say for a minute that we take out the B section repeat. You still go through the first section of the first bourrée 2 times. You then go through the 36-bar section once. You then cut to the second bourrée and do both sections with repeats. You then go back to A. At this point, I would like to mention a theory that some scholars have mentioned with regards to these repeats. Instead of going back to the A section and doing it without repeats, some have said that perhaps it should be done again with repeats. Let's remember that we are talking about music written pre-recorded age, and also at a time when a lot of this music would not be played a second time. What if we did end up repeating the A section the second time? This actually makes a very interesting pattern, because if you take every section but the B section, you repeat it accordingly, then you get a total of 72 measures. Which is exactly the same number of measures you get if you played the B section once the first time around, and then once more the second time around. Many people will say that the reason you do all the repeats is because he's thinking about an overall structure, which is true. But I can claim from experience that usually after hearing the entire bourrées in a set, I will have completely forgotten the second bourrée. Admittedly, is one of my favorite movements. Very small, but absolutely gorgeous. It's not necessarily to say that this is how it should be performed, rather to let audiences know that this is what performers think about before they step onto the stage. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week.